Hello and welcome to In the Spotlight with Quocirca, the definitive podcast on digital disruption in the print industry. I'm Louella Fernandes, CEO of Quocirca, and this year we're pleased to be celebrating 5 years of the podcast. We've got some great guests lined up for you this series. Today, I'm joined by Aurelio Maruggi, President of HP Office Printing Solutions. We'll be discussing how HP is addressing the opportunities around AI and secure-driven document workflows for SMBs. So welcome to the show, Aurelio.
Thank you, Louella. And by the way, congratulations for the 5 years of podcast. They've been definitely very well followed by people listening to this podcast and learning about the progress in technology. And thank you for having me here.
Yeah, absolutely, Aurelio. It's always great to speak to you. So before we dive into the conversation, could you tell us a bit about your career history and your role at HP today?
So first of all, I always start saying 40 years. 40 years is how long I've been in the printing industry. I've been for 24 years out of these 40 in HP. And I've seen almost all the aspects of the printing industry, from home printing, the very early days of inkjet printing, to what I'm doing today, that is mostly laser printing for office, and going through industrial printing.
So your role at the moment is head of HP Office Print Solutions. So that covers hardware, software and services as well?
Yes, it is covering what we define as product with capital P, is what is the type of solution and experience that we deliver to our customers when it comes to office printing. It's not just the actual device.
So as I said, we're talking about SMB document workflows, particularly with a focus on AI and security. And HP has recently published some new research around the theme of workflow wake-up. From this research, what would you say are the biggest day-to-day workflow blockers for SMBs, and how is HP turning document processes into competitive advantage for them?
And definitely SMB, Louella, is a very, very important segment of the market. It is a very important category of customer. It's continue to grow around the world. But SMB, they tend, in the majority of the case, to be focused on what they call the core business. So they have a core business mindset. And so this is where their attention, their investment are mostly focused. And when it comes to technology, and specifically technology for document management, their processes are definitely outdated. And these outdated process land in simple tasks that can be either printing or scanning documents to be quite complex and friction prone and error prone. And this ended up in having the employees in SMB to spend a disproportionate amount of time in doing this that could be very simple task. This is the case also for SMB, that are probably the larger SMB companies that have IT departments, where IT departments, they are almost in constant firefighting mode when it comes to printing. And this is not only for the basic printing, is for what printers or multifunction printers do to their business, that is fundamentally helping their document workflow. And there is in this study shows that 60% of these IT professionals that are working in SMB are definitely frustrated for the amount of time that this requires to provide the support for printing to operate in the right way within their enterprise. And as I said, it's not because a printer is not printing, is the document workflow associated with printing that is still error prone and friction prone. And this is the very reason why in HP we have invested, and we continue to invest in a significant way when it comes to the capabilities that we are bringing on our devices, and more recently our capabilities that are leveraging AI technology, either AI on board of the device or AI in the cloud, that allow these operations that are needed for document workflow. It can be either printing or scanning, to be enhanced by AI capabilities.
Yes, I think that's a really good point. It's all about removing the friction, as you mentioned, between the physical and digital worlds for SMBs. And we often see in our research that SMBs are struggling with, outdated technology and, as you say, manual processes. But often they don't have the resources to also manage their IT environment. So it's really important that they can make that more seamless and flexible. So it sounds really interesting in terms of what HP is doing to help them unlock more productivity in their businesses. If we come on to AI, which you touched upon there, HP often talks about practical AI for everyday document work. What would you say are the most common SMB tasks that AI can streamline? And how do you quantify the time saved? Because sometimes it's challenging to really show that, to quantify those tangible cost savings.
First of all, let's start from what our devices do in an office, because a lot of time we define them as printers, or we think to them as printers. But I like to think to our devices as gateway between the digital and the physical format of documents. And you cannot imagine a single business, irrespective of the size or the part of the world is operating, that can operate without documents. Now, the reality is that documents are hybrid. They are in a physical format or in a digital format. And this transition from the digital format and physical format is where the friction that I was referring before happens. And this is where the augmentation of the capability of product with AI can remove that friction and making operation like printing that means off-ramping a digital document on paper, intelligent, intuitive, precise. And then I use precise because we have defined a precise print term associated with this technology that allows finally to do what printer drivers have not done for 40 years, because printer driver for 40 years, they have taken a document, generating the bitmap, the image of the document, and translated on paper without understanding what the user is trying to print. If you are on a web page and you are searching for a critical piece of information, that web page is not necessarily formatted in an optimized way for print. It's optimized for a display. It is filled with a lot of hyperlink and maybe advertising that are definitely not relevant for the information that you are searching. What precise print does is able to understand exactly what the worker needs to print, be able to extract this information from the web page and format in a proper way. And on the other side, that is the on-ramp of documents. So moving document from the physical format to the digital format is where also the capabilities that we are bringing on our devices, this AI capability, allow finally to not just generate a bitmap out of a digital format out of the pixels that are on the page, but be able to understand what is exactly on that page, what is the content that is on that page, be able to name properly the file that has been scanned, be able to create summary of what has been scanned, and this is what we call precise scan. And these are all capabilities that are leveraging AI technology that we are embedding in our solutions.
Yeah, that really aligns with what we're seeing in the market as well. We've done quite a bit of research around the future of work and things like AI-enabled capture, print optimization, which, things like HP AI Precise Print are really great for not only optimizing print, but also reducing wasteful printing and wasted time as well. So we see a lot of benefits. And I think, as you say, knowledge workers and users really want to use AI to help them drive productivity as well for their top document-related tasks. So picking back up on SMB IT teams, as I mentioned, they typically are challenged with resources stretched very thin. How would you say HP makes printers easier to deploy and manage remotely, while also keeping hybrid employees productive across dispersed sites? Because, ultimately it's about, as you say, frictionless user experience, but also the IT experience as well.
Yeah, and as you said, in some cases, SMB, they have a IT department. In many cases, they even do not have an IT department, but still they have a need for onboarding these devices, and this all starts from the setup of the device. So we have definitely worked in developing tools and capabilities in our device for an easy and intuitive setup, reducing the onboarding time. We measure the time from taking the product out of the box to the time of the first print, and this is the obsession that we have with our engineering team, in order to make sure that the time is reduced to the fullest extent, such that there is a series of very fast and intuitive steps that brings to have that product integrated, but integrated in a way that is business grade. So it's not consumer grade. So it's an integration that takes into account the different topology that exists in the office, the persona that are going to use the device, and so on and so forth. So this is the first aspect. So the first aspect is the setup and onboarding of a device. The second aspect is the management of these devices. Now, of course, there are very small SMB that have only one or two devices, but typically there is a small number of devices that SMB has to manage, and the ability of having a simple and intuitive tool that is able to know at any point in time what is the status of that device. So if there is a system administrator or if there is an IT department, the ability to do a management of the devices that are in the enterprise, in the SMB, even in a distributed fashion, because the SMB can have multiple locations or can have also remote workers, helps IT to have at any point in time an understanding of the health of the fleet of products that are deployed. The last is related to the connectivity. Now, all our devices are coming with a Wi-Fi 6 that is an interface that really addresses some of the teething issue that exist with connectivity on printers not be able to maintain that connectivity in a consistent way, the ability to self-reset if there is anything that is not going right on Wi-Fi. And so this is another step in order to remove friction from the management of devices. And the last, and this is the new frontier that we are working on, is intelligence across multiple devices that knowledge workers use in the office. And these multiple devices are PCs, are collaboration devices, or meeting rooms, and printers that today they really do not work in a coordinated way, but where the opportunity is to allow these devices to be able to connect in a more intuitive way, in a more intelligent way, be able to transfer information, to be able to create in the workflow, eliminate the friction. Let me make an example, walking to a printer and be able to be automatically authenticated as Louella. And so knowing that printer has printing jobs that are waiting for you to be retrieved, or working on that printer and be able again to be recognized in order to scan the documents that you need to on-ramp in the digital world. So these are all capabilities that we intend to bring into our devices in order to operate into the ecosystem of technology that exists in the business in a seamless way.
Yes, so that's really makes sense, because HP is very uniquely positioned, isn't it, to manage collaboration and workflow across the workplace, from PCs, printers, and collaboration devices. And as you say, it's a full technology ecosystem, which HP has the tools and the products. So it's great to hear how HP is, addressing some of those pain points that SMBs are suffering in terms of workflows and IT management and so on. And security, which you touched upon, is very much table stakes for SMBs. In fact, we see that SMBs are even more vulnerable than large enterprises because, again, often they may not have the resources or the budget to protect their endpoint devices and all their sort of devices ultimately in the workplace against emerging threats. So what would you say HP offers at the moment in terms of protection for its newest devices, and what safeguards is HP placing against emerging threats, such as post-quantum attacks? And, ultimately, how should SMBs really think about compliance readiness?
Security has been center and core for HP for many years. Now it is more than 10 years that we started declaring that printers or multifunction devices are as vulnerable or even more vulnerable than other edge endpoints in an enterprise network or in a business network. And this was more than 10 years ago. I believe it was in 2015 when we started introducing the first security technology in our product. And since then has been a continuum of investment that we have had in security technology, security practices in order to help business around the world to realize the importance of security and security practices, number one, but also the importance of having devices that are fundamentally what we call future ready. And this is the exact example of what you are mentioning, the post-quantum cryptography protection that we have in our product. Our printers, last year we introduced for the first time in printing, post-quantum cryptography protection for our enterprise. And this year we are now bringing this capability into the SMB type of product, because, as you said, SMB are as vulnerable, to a certain extent, even more vulnerable than large enterprises. And quantum computers are kind of around the corner in terms of being accessible, either in terms of devices or in terms of cloud capabilities to individuals that can use for malicious purposes. And we want to make sure that businesses are properly protected. For that reason, this technology that is a technology that implies not only firmware and software, but implies hardware. So because it is a technology that is embedded in the chipset of our device, secure our devices for quantum computer attacks in the future.
Yes, as you say, it's over 10 years ago when HP declared, offering the world's most secure printers. And I think now it's all about future-proofing those environments through protecting against quantum computing attacks. So, it makes sense that HP is there to support those SMBs, because I think printing has always been a blind spot for organizations. Even at Quocirca, we've been tracking this for a long time. And I think there's a mixture of complacency with lack of awareness around the real vulnerabilities around print security. So moving on,
it's a never ending. In technology, this is why in security is not a matter of implementing a technology, is continuing to follow the evolution of how this cyber attack can be generated and where and using which technology, and be able to have proper defense mechanisms to be implemented on device, and what is around the device, what are the solutions around the devices.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very much about on-device protection as well as protecting those workflows, because especially with AI, it's a double-edged sword in terms of helping drive productivity, but it's also being harnessed by cyber attackers as well. So very interesting times ahead, I think, around security and
if I may,
AI.
If I may add, Louella, there is also another aspect of security, that is security of data, and more specifically the personal identifiable information, the PII data, where we are also putting specific focus, especially related to AI. We have announced and introduced on the enterprise product last year the AI reduction on our product. So what this allows is for for business customers that have access to PII document with personal identifiable information to be able to identify this information at the time the document has been scanned and be able to identify this information and be able to mask this information in order to not be transferred and distributed in an uncontrolled way. And this technology is available in the enterprise product, both as an embedded solution or with the recent announcement that we have done of the integration of Copilot in our devices. It is now available also as a Copilot capability directly available on the product. So security has multiple aspects. It is preventing cyber attack, but is also securing the data that the enterprise, the business and the business customer have from going into the wrong hands.
Yes, absolutely. So it's very much about, as you say, protecting the document at the point of creation and preventing it even being printed. So I think it's the full document lifecycle, isn't it? So document security, device security, network security, and so on. So, and if we then pick up in terms of integrating print into the wider digital workplace, because that then becomes a matter for, you sort of touched upon capture solutions and integrations. So how do you see HP's solution integrations helping SMBs manage those end-to-end document workflows more seamlessly rather than as individual isolated tasks?
The way we think to how AI can enhance the capability of document workflow in the enterprise is almost a multi-layer. There is AI capability that we have on the device, like the one that we just mentioned, the scan reduction that we have embedded on the device, or AI capabilities that we have in the drivers, in the software that drives the devices, both the printer drivers and the scanning driver. But then there is an outer layer that is the software that is able to integrate into the business workflow, into the ERP of the company. And let me make an example. We have launched last year, and this is available for all our Office products, a solution that we call Scan AI, that is a software that allows to take documents that have been digitized and have been eventually being redacted by the capability that we have on board of the device, but be able to do not only the translation of that document into a editable text that is the traditional OCR, but is going one step further, is able to understand exactly the type of document that has been scanned. If this is a contract, and what is the content of that contract, what are the primary terms that needs to be extracted and generate metadata in order to be properly routed within the enterprise workflow. Or if the document is an invoice, be able to digitize that invoice, convert into an editable text, but then going one step further, understanding what is the company that has generated that invoice, when that invoice has been generated in terms of date, what is the amount of that invoice, what is the cost center that invoice needs to be routed, and all this done in a touchless way. So this eliminating, going back to the very first point that we were discussing, eliminating a lot of work that is taking from employees critical time to focus on higher value work, and is also automation that allows the elimination of error. Because if you think on a traditional way of managing invoice and be able to understand where that invoice needs to be routed and the input of data that needs to be done manually, it is error prone and is definitely not the best use of time for an employee.
Yes, I've seen a few demos actually of the AI enhanced scan applications. And, I think it's really powerful and compelling for organizations, as you say, to reduce the time they're spending on some of those manual tasks in the past. And it really sounds like HP is creating this kind of unified digital workplace strategy that encompasses prints, but also capture and these workflows. I guess the hybrid workplace is very well embedded today, but there's also a need for teams to really have stronger connectivity and reliability around when they're setting up their solutions. Can you talk a bit about that and what really makes the biggest difference in real SMB environments in terms of these addressing some of these setup challenges?
It is definitely an obsession that we have in making the setup, first of all, business grade and not consumer grade, and also making it with a minimal amount of steps and time that requires from really unboxing the product to have that product integrated into the business and operating as intended. But there are also steps like the one that I was mentioning about making even easier in terms of discoverability of devices into an office. A lot of times, how many times, Louella, you ended up being in an office, being close to a printer, and you do not understand how to create a connection between the laptop or the smartphone that you have in your hand and that printer, and be able to be authenticated and be able to operate. All these are areas where we are definitely investing in a significant way in order to change the game, in order to make much easier the setup of devices, but even more easy the use of devices and discovery of devices in the office.
Yeah, so in terms of how you're working with channel partners, because I guess ultimately the channel is really critical to success for HP in succeeding in this SMB space. How is HP already enabling its channel partners to deliver these kind of outcomes and manage services for SMBs so that they can benefit without the heavy lift?
The approach that we are taking is not one solution fits all, but providing what I call the building blocks, the Lego blocks of what is the solution that ultimately our channel partners needs to tailor to the specific customer needs. And so all these capabilities that we've been talking in this podcast are capability that can be all assembled in a solution depending on the customer need. That are customers that are, for example, heavy in terms of digitization needs. For those customers, our channel partners can have access to some of these AI capabilities, AI scanning capability, either on board of the device like precise scan, or more advanced capability like advanced scan AI. And so this software can be embedded can be integrated in the solution that the channel partners develop. So we are not trying to offer through channel partners predefined solution, but we are offering the components that help our channel partners to assemble the solution that fits the specific need of their customers. And we are providing to channel partners also a backend support structure that allows them to understand how to best integrate these software solution, these software elements into the solution that they need to deliver to their customer.
Yes, it makes sense, doesn't it? Because I think that the channel, and something Quocirca is seeing with channel partners, is that clearly there's a need for them to differentiate. The market's becoming more commoditized from a hardware perspective, and having value propositions that really focus around workflow, automation, and so on really helps those partners to also diversify their businesses. So it sounds like HP is providing the right tools and components for them to develop those solutions going forward.
You know, Louella, that I've been for 4 years in Apogee, managing Apogee. We had 11,000 customers, and every single customer had different needs. But in all cases, they were not just looking for a print device. They were looking for a printing solution. This is what customers are looking for from their partners. And this is why the role of companies like HP is to enable these channel partners with a tool set, with these Lego block that allow them to develop the specific solution that fits what is the specific customer need.
Yes, and I think with SMBs, it's always been very much a focus on business outcomes. So they're looking for whether it's reducing cost, improving productivity, reducing risk, even reducing environmental impact. It's what are the solutions that help them gain those positive business outcomes. So yeah, and I know from your background that you're very close to that in terms of how channel partners work. So that brings us to really looking ahead in terms of what HP is doing next around SMB document workflows, especially around AI, security, and services, the intersection of those three areas. Could you talk a bit about what's next for HP in that space and perhaps what you see as coming next in the print industry as well?
Yeah, without disclosing all the long-term roadmap that we have, but I can tell you that there are two areas, Louella, that we are heavily investing. And don't get me wrong, of course, the device is important. We will continue to invest on great printing technology, but it's not anymore about the printing technology, what we call the feed and speed. It is about the experiences that we deliver, the capabilities that we deliver in our product through advanced AI workflow solution. So this is the first area where we have invested, as we have been discussing in the first part of this podcast, and we are continuing to invest because the AI capability that we brought on our devices is kind of the beginning of a multi-year journey that we see in terms of more AI capabilities that can enhance document workflow for SMB customers. The second area is security. As I've said, we have been investing for more than 10 years in security and counting. This is a never-ending stream of investments that we have on the HP side because it's never-ending from where and which type of cyber threat can attack our customers. And so therefore, there will be significant investment that we'll continue to have in security. So these are really the two areas where we are vectoring the majority of our investment, in addition to, of course, the basic of deliver great quality, reliable product, and so on and so forth. But it has definitely evolved over the course of the year, the amount of investment that we put on the device itself versus the investment that we have in software capabilities, either embedded in the device or around our devices.
Yeah, that's great. I think, I always enjoy speaking to you, Aurelio. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your perspective. And it's particularly valuable because you've obviously had, a long history of navigating lots of market shifts in this industry. And I think what you've really highlighted is a very critical distinction today. It's no longer a conversation about feeds and speeds, as you mentioned, but rather the strategic implementation of AI advanced workflows. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share HP's vision for the future digital workplace with us today.
Thank you very much, Louella, for having me. And thank you all for listening to this podcast.
So thank you for joining today's episode of In the Spotlight with Quocirca. For more information, please visit quocirca.com and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks again for joining, and I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.